Today on The Nation Speaks, students in Loudoun County, Virginia are in trouble for going maskless to school. They say they were just following Governor Youngkin's executive order making masks optional, and now they're suspended. Here's how these brave students see it. Then in America Q&A, we ask if you would support cutting off sunlight to fight climate change. It's called solar geoengineering, and it's a thing. And in our final America Q&A, we ask, do you think it's unethical to exploit loopholes in the tax code to pay as little tax as possible? Hello and welcome to The Nation Speaks. I'm your host, Cindy Drucare. Virginia seems to be ground zero for frustrated, angry parents pushing back against their school boards over issues like teaching critical race theory and exposing their children to sexually explicit materials. Tensions exploded in Loudoun County, where the school board covered up a sexual assault. After a male student molested a girl, instead of being punished, he was just transferred to a different school, where he did it again. And now there's a face-off over masks. Wednesday, Virginia's Senate voted with bipartisan support to ban public schools from forcing their students to wear masks. This measure should easily pass through the Republican-controlled House and then land on Governor Glenn Youngkin's desk for signing. This is a big victory for the governor, who on his very first day in office last month issued an executive order making masks optional, only to have it immediately buried in lawsuits, including by a group of school boards who say that the governor is overstepping his authority. Early rulings have gone both ways. Virginia's Supreme Court dismissed one suit on a technicality that was launched by parents in Chesapeake, and then an Arlington County judge issued an injunction allowing 7 school boards to keep their students in masks until all the legal action plays out. However, if that mask ban legislation does become law, most of these suits will become moot. In the meantime, some students decided it's time to show their faces. Following the governor's order, they showed up at school maskless and got suspended and more. Here to tell us what's happening, we're joined by 2 families from Loudoun County. Muriel and Brian Gross have 2 daughters at Blue Ridge Middle School, Annabelle in 7th grade and Madeline in 6th grade, and Andrew Missler and his son Jared, who is a senior at Woodgrove High School. Welcome to all of you. I want to hear what happened when you students went to school without masks. So girls, why don't you start?
Well, we went to school without a mask, and we walked to our locker, and then the dean came up, and he told us to get our stuff and go into his office. And then they called our parents, and then they sent us to the auditorium where all the other maskless kids were.
And how many of you were there?
About 15.
Okay, and what happened to you in the auditorium?
So we all sat in the auditorium. We had to sit 2 or 1 to a row, and you would have to skip a row and the next person would sit there. So it was very, very spaced out, and there was no talking allowed. You had to do schoolwork the whole entire day. It was very closed in. They had like walls around. It was just not a very good environment to sit in. It felt depressing, just empty.
And parents, what did you do when you were called?
The school called us and informed us of our child's decision, and we said, well, if that's what they are choosing, then we support them. And so they let us know that, and they said they would be segregated into the auditorium with other unmasked students. And at one point, that day when we went to go pick them up, the principal asked what our end goal was, and I just said for our children to be in class, in their class with their peers, getting the in-person instruction that the state of Virginia is supposed to provide for them. And he just let us know that was not possible because they weren't masked. And so then by Friday, so you stayed for 5 days in school in the suspended room.
Yeah.
Separated from the other students. They weren't allowed to socialize with their peers even at lunchtime, which is an unmasked activity where they're sitting shoulder to shoulder with their friends for at least 30 minutes. And when they would ask to do that, the teacher would tell them they could not have any interaction with the masked students.
So wait, normally during normal school, everyone's wearing their mask, and then at lunchtime, these same students sit shoulder to shoulder without masks and eat their lunch and talk and breathe and everything else that might happen.
Very similar to after-school sports activities as well, where they're unmasked side by side, the same as lunch, yet in the classroom, they have to be masked. Really, it doesn't make sense, and that is the critical thinking skills that our children brought to the table and realized that this doesn't make sense, and then made the choice on their own to stand up for what is right.
Jared, when did you go to school maskless, and what happened?
I went on the 24th. They immediately got us and separated us. So we had to go into the auditorium, which was incredibly hot and muggy.
And how many of you were there?
I think over the course of the whole week, there was 66, but I think first day, it was probably around 33.
And what was your reaction, Andrew? Did they call you?
The first week we didn't get called. I know the word they used was segregate. So they segregated our children from the masked children. So we didn't get a call, and I know that they were in segregation for an entire week without instruction. They basically sat, the first time it was in almost like a auditorium for the first day, if I remember correctly. And then for the next 4 days, they sat there at their own, like one of those folding tables that you would get from one of those box stores. And they sat one child at a folding table for 8 hours a day with no instruction whatsoever.
You just sat there, Jared, just sat there?
All 8 hours.
Incredible. So that was the first, that lasted a week, and then what happened?
Then on Wednesday, we went back to school. Or actually, not this Wednesday, but last Wednesday, we went back to school. I actually came with my dad that time.
So Monday, Tuesday, what happened Monday, Tuesday?
There was no school those days.
Okay, so Wednesday was your first day back in the second week. Okay, so you went to school?
That was Groundhog Day, so February 2nd. So if that's not fitting enough, but.
We went to school together because they gave us a letter. Only the kids that were in the aux gym or auxiliary gym were given a letter and told that if you came to school without a mask, you'd be suspended. So that's exactly what happened.
So you got suspended, and I believe we have some video of your father on that day. Is that right? Talking to the principal?
We do.
You're punishing him. I want you to think about this for a second. We're punishing him for thinking about what he thinks is right and just. No offense to you. I'm letting you know right off the bat, I will sue every single person that is responsible for his suspension. And I understand you have a job to do, but as a parent, I'm a papa bear. 24 years, I've behind a badge. And this shames, this actually taints it. It's terrible to watch what's going on. Terrible. I know you have a job to do, but it doesn't stop the fact that you need to stand up for good people.